Thank you, David. This is so exciting. This is the culmination of, I don't know, a year of having this vision for this Truth Conference, so it's really exciting to see it come to fruition because it started off as a thought, a word, and then it became reality, it became form. So this is very exciting. Well, as David said, I do like to do things in a fun, simple, easy way. And the reason I do that is because as I went through my spiritual journey, and I'm sure some of you probably can relate, if not all of you, there is a heaviness about the process that we go through. But once you get to a certain point on this journey, you realize, okay, we need to lighten up about this. It really doesn't need to be so heavy. I don't want to make light of the ones who are enjoying the heaviness or who are in that experience because that's important. I went through that myself. But what I'm going to take you through here today, this presentation, is all about fun. And I am so excited because I heard David say a couple of things. By the way, I've never met him before. And David, that was a wonderful, wonderful experience in that Qigong. But I have never heard him speak before. Actually, I just met him today. And one of the things, well, several things that he said, you're going to see in my presentation, they are just absolutely, they match. It's almost like we scripted this together. Kids get this whole energy thing really easily because they don't use their minds so much. They're in that moment. And that's why they make it fun. And as some of us who have grown up with certain traditions, religious traditions, they tell us that we need to be like little kids to get back into the kingdom of heaven. So today, my presentation is all about sharing with you how I see the journey from my perspective. Now, I am going to invite everybody who is here to take from this whatever resonates and leave what doesn't. And what I'm going to ask you to do is invite you to do, pay attention to your mind. Pay attention to the places where your mind wants to be judgmental, where your mind's going to go to, I already know that, where your mind is going to go to places that, well, check you out of being here, because you came here because you're on a journey. Every single one of us is on this incredible journey. And what I want to find out by a show of hands, who has been on their journey? Call it a spiritual journey, call it a journey to self-awareness, call it a journey just to get happy. Who has been on their journey 10 years or less? That would be me. I'm coming up on my 10th anniversary on this journey. So who has been here on the journey 10 years or more? All right, so I'm with everybody who's on a journey here. Very cool. I don't think I saw any hands that didn't go up. So let's talk about this journey. Again, from my perspective, and everything I'm going to share with you is from my perspective, there is absolutely nothing new under the sun, or so we think. Now, let me say this. I know all of you paid money to be here, and I am telling you, you're not going to get anything new. So hopefully that doesn't upset you. But what you are going to get that will be new to you is a new perspective. Because every single one of us is going to share the exact same thing, but from our own personal perspective. When I started on this journey, I began to read things that were written 2,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago. And what was amazing, even from the authors that had written something maybe 5 years ago, I found that they were all saying the same thing. Everybody was saying the exact same thing. And I kept combing through all this stuff to figure out what is it that I am going to discover? Because I was on a mission. I'm on a journey. I'm going somewhere. And what I became aware of, which is why the work that I do is called the power of awareness, is I became aware that what I was discovering were things that I didn't know about in my head, but that I actually knew about in my heart. So the journey was to rediscover a truth that was already within me, that I came with. Every one of us is born with this truth, but through life, through the process of life, well, we kind of tend to forget it. So again, I'm going to take you through my journey, the way I see the spiritual journey from conception to enlightenment. So bear with me because we're going to have a little bit of fun here. Hopefully everybody here is okay with fun. All right, so you can look at that picture. Hopefully everybody can see it. That there is a right and wrong way. There absolutely is a right and wrong way. Can everybody see that? And notice they all lead to the same place. It's the loop. It's a 1.2 mile loop. Go this way, it's the right way. Go this way, it's the wrong way. You're going to end up in the same place. One of the things that I had to do as I was moving through this journey was to begin to get very deliberate about sifting through the information that I was gathering. Because I'm sure, as most of you here, was reading tons of books, going to tons of workshops. I was a workshop information junkie. I could not get enough. I spent maybe 3-4 years of my life out there searching for more information. But I had to begin to sift what was information for my head and what was the information that was feeding my heart and allowing for me to experience transformation. One of the things that I discovered as I was going through my journey is that at one point I had to go back to the beginning. To be able to make sense of everything that I had learned, I truly had to go back to the beginning. And as all of us know, in the beginning was the Word. So I began to think about, okay, if I go back to the beginning of who I am, if I go back to the beginning of time, what is there? This Word. What is Word? Word are thoughts. Word is creative power. It's creative energy. Word was the information in the mind of Source, the whatever you want to call it, God, Buddha, Allah, pet rock, universe, spirit, whatever it is that you call that place that we all come from. That was the beginning point, and there was creativity happening. There was the energy of thoughts, the energy of excitement, the energy of joy. And this creative force was nothing more than energy. So there's this energy called Source, to me, and then there's this energetic thoughts taking place. And all of this thinking then begins to create the heavens and the earth. I hope you guys are having fun with the visuals. They're not your typical, spiritual perspective visuals. But anyways, in the beginning was this thought in the mind of this Source. And it creates the heavens and the earth. It creates solid form. It puts out the matter. And then billions of years later, we have this brilliant guy who was also on a spiritual journey. By the way, if you've never studied Einstein, if you take a little time to read his writings, read his teachings, absolutely an enlightened being. So he made it really simple for us. He let us know that energy equals matter. It's like, duh, could have had a V8 on that one. What I began to realize is I was starting to connect the dots. Every time that I have a thought, I'm creating something with it. I'm creating something that actually matters. How many of you have had time where you have thought, actually, I don't need to ask you because I know this is true for you. I'll take the liberty of stating that for you. Where you think, oh, I want a certain kind of a car, and then you go buy the car. Or you think that you want a certain kind of a job, and then you get that job. Or you think that you want a certain person to be your mate, and then you get that person. You think you're hungry for pasta, and then you go have pasta. So we're constantly having creative ideas, energy going through our mind, and that energy takes form, and we see the evidence of it. It's like with this One World Spiritual Center. There were a couple people who had the thought, the energy was moving inside of them. They had the thought of creating something like this, and look at it, it's matter. It became form. So when I went back to the source of all that is, this creative power that makes everything, and I began to understand, or began to feel within me my truth, what is this source? Well, this source to me, this energy, was nothing but love. I got to the place that I realized, oh my gosh, the energy that creates everything is love. It's the energy of love, that there's no other energy. It is just the energy of love. And that was one of the most defining moments for me when I began to realize that not only did everything get started out of energy, but everything got started out of love. And this loving energy began to have all these ideas, and all these ideas began to take shape and became form. And that to me was mind-blowing. It was one of those moments that it just, if anybody here on their spiritual journey have had like a massive aha, that was like my massive aha. I am made of energy and I am made of love. How cool is that? Well, that made the journey a lot easier in some ways, but a lot more challenging in others, because I had to start thinking about energy in a different way and think of love in this context, that there's positive and there's negative to it. There is that positive love that is unconditional, that is radiating, that moves outward. And then there's that negative love that is constrictive, that is your mind, that is very conditional. So I thought about energy. Well, there's positive energy out there, there's negative energy, but it's all important. Just as there's up, there's down. We have to have it all. And I thought, okay, well, I can hang with that. So there's this energy, I'm love, I'm it, there's positive, there's negative. Then I had this incredible idea. It all began to make incredible sense. From that, I began to realize, okay, how is the best way for me to explain this to people? How is the best way for me to make sense of all of this? So when you were talking about, water, energy, think of water as the analogy for energy, as the analogy for love. So kind of play with me here right now. When I think about myself as water, when I am positive, I am bubbling, I am open, I am moving, I am fluid, I am absolutely just total joy. This creativity is moving through me. When I think of water, myself, love, my energy as negative, I get tight and tense and constricted. I feel like I close off, I come in. So again, my energy, if it's water, I'm flowing like the ocean, like a wave, moving wherever I want to go. When I get negative, I get tight and constricted. So as I kept thinking about, okay, the positive, the negative. If I am water, I am love, I am energy. When I get negative, what happens? Well, you know what happens to water when it goes below, freezing? It turns into a nice iceberg. So I thought, oh my gosh, I understand that, because when I get all negative, when I get in my head and I get really negative, I get pretty frigid. I get pretty tight, I get pretty tense, pretty dense. I don't know if some of you relate with that, but that's what happens to my flowing water when I allow negative thoughts to come into my head. I close off. So I got curious again. Curiosity is one of the things in this journey that is so delicious, because if you stay curious, if you stay with that mind of the I don't know what's over there, you begin to expand yourself into new territory. You get to the place where you truly can tap into what's inside, because as long as I'm justifying what I know, I cannot know what I don't know. So I love Curious George. So as I began to think about the fact that I am water, that I am energy, that I am love, how does this relate to my thoughts, to these words? In the beginning were those words that created everything. So as I began to think about my words, I began to realize that my words are energy. Isn't that clever? Notice how our logo for the Truth Conference is about putting together the pieces of the puzzle. And what I've done on my spiritual journey is gather these pieces of the puzzle, and what I am passionate about sharing is how they all fit together. So we have these words, they're energy, and I can use them in a very negative way, and I can use words that are hurtful, words that are of fear, words that can tear others apart. I can use my words, my thoughts, my beliefs to create something really tight and dense and dark and separate myself from others. I can literally, with my words, destroy people. Every one of us has the ability to do that, because we are both the positive and the negative. So when I began to be mindful about what makes me so tight and tense, what's going on, now that I understand that it is my words, it is my thinking that causes me to get so tight and tense, I am very mindful now of what kind of words am I using, because my words give direction to my energy. As you were saying, that the chi is what moves the blood, I think is what you said. So the chi, the energy of my words, it's what's moving my body. And when I'm using negative words, and when I'm using words that are constrictive, I am getting tight and tense and frigid like an iceberg. And of course, when I do that, notice how icebergs kind of separate themselves. They're standing there all by themselves. But I can also use my words in a very positive way. I can utilize words that are affirming, words that are of love, words that are passion, and that express beauty, that express wonderful things. And then I notice when I do that, well, it heats me up. It feels exciting. It feels passionate. So the more I paid attention to the fact that my words direct how I feel, it was like another one of those aha moments. Now all of a sudden, what Einstein was saying made perfect sense. Energy equals matter. My thoughts are energy, and my body feels tight, and boy, does it matter to me that I want to feel better. So when I made that correlation between my thinking and how I was feeling, another major aha. Major, major. So then I began to start doing some research. Again, this is part of me getting curious again. I began to do some research, and really the research was, where did all these negative and positive words come from? Where does all this negative and positive feelings, beliefs, thoughts came to me? And I realized I came in here like every one of us came in, a brand new baby, pure love, pure joy, pure chi, and other people began to give me information. So as I started taking information from others, other people's thoughts, I began to create a set of beliefs, and I began to basically perceive the world through the beliefs that my mother, my father, my teachers, my preachers, the media, my girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever, gave to me. And guess what? They gave me positive and negative information. So I took on what they gave me, and then when I utilize it without thinking, I have an effect of feeling good or feeling bad, feeling open or feeling contracted. But here's the thing that happens. When we take in all this information, we are taught by other people that there is a right and a wrong. How many of us like to be right about things? Most of us never want to be wrong. I'll be the first one to tell you that. I do not want to be wrong, especially at a time in my journey that I was beginning to discover that I needed to be right about everything. And I needed to be right only about what I knew, because I didn't know what I didn't know. So when somebody was trying to tell me, well, you may want to consider looking at life this way, or you may want to consider, maybe that's your ego showing. I was like, you're wrong, I don't have that. That's not mine. So when I began to realize that my positive thoughts made me feel good, my negative thoughts made me feel bad, I began to realize that I used right and wrong as a way to make myself feel good, so then I would use positive words to justify why I needed to be right. And then I began to feel that I started feeling bad. I started feeling bad when I was using these positive words to justify wronging somebody else. So it became a really interesting thing to begin to see what was going on in my head. Then I had to do something. I had to take responsibility for the fact that I knew that within me is the ability to think positive or think negative. And if I know that my words are energy and my words direct how I feel, I had to take responsibility for who I was, for who I'm showing up in the world. Because when I'm using words that are negative, I'm literally separating myself from others. When I'm using words that are positive, beliefs that are positive, I am connecting to others. And this is where I want to tell you a little bit about one of the presenters. When I was, I don't know, a couple of years into my journey, in the throes of my dark night, in the throes of the really yucky stuff, and so upset that I discovered that I got all this negative stuff from other people, especially my mother and my grandmother. Got to combine the two of them. When I found the people that I needed to blame for giving me all that negative stuff, I was like, I'm on this spiritual journey. You people did this to me. I got very self-righteous. You know, I use those positive words. I'm spiritual, and you guys are all wrong about what you gave me. I had to do some serious forgiveness. I had to spend some time looking at why am I trying to blame somebody else when now I have all this wonderful information that tells me that I'm the source of my own joy or not. So I happened to, I don't know, those of you guys are in the journey like me, at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, you can't sleep and you're trying to sort things out. I was on the computer and I was, Googling forgiveness. And I landed on the website of Radical Forgiveness. That was my first introduction to Colin. And you probably don't know this. I don't think I've ever told you this. And in the middle of the night, I see this form there. Do this form. And he, it's so well written about the benefits of doing this form. And I'm like, okay, well, I really don't want to forgive these people that I am justified in holding accountable for all my suffering. But I thought, okay, let me get curious again. Let me stay open. What do I really want? I want to feel happy. I want to feel good. I want my body to feel relaxed. Let me do the form. So I go through this Radical Forgiveness form, and it was one of those other big aha moments. I realized that in all my spiritualness, I was judging others. So I was still playing that right and wrong game, even though I'm thinking that I'm so above everybody else. But the greatest thing that form did for me, it gave me the opportunity to see that when I lovingly accept that others did only what they could with what they knew, they taught me what they knew. My mom didn't teach me anything she didn't know. Neither did my grandmother. We don't do that with our kids. We don't teach them what we don't know. So that acceptance that they were on their journey, using their own negative, positive, however they did, they utilized their energy and did what they did, I found a space in my heart. It was like that iceberg began to melt when I began to practice forgiveness. Well, there you go, forgiveness. When I saw that forgiveness was basically the energy of love in motion, that love began to melt the parts of me that had hardened. It was like turning on this faucet of juicy, liquid love flowing all through me inside my body. So when we're doing this Qigong movement, it is a complete movement within the body when you begin to realize that your thoughts create how you feel. And just by the simple process that Colin developed, following these simple steps that he guided me beautifully on that form, even though I was all by myself at 3 o'clock in the morning, I began to feel more alive. I began to feel a part inside of me that I hadn't felt in a really long time. And then I realized, you know what? There's only one way every one of us is going. No matter which direction you're going, we're all going to the same place, because energy moves forward. There is a forward movement. We're going from our conception to the day that we transition. Everything moves forward. There is no going backward. So when I began to realize that I'm only moving in one direction, don't I want to make the best of this no matter which way I go? So what did I need to do with this big iceberg that I had created? The iceberg was the negativity, the judgments, the separation between myself and others. So I began to chip away. I began to chip away at my iceberg with lots of forgiveness treatments. I did all my affirmations. I did all those wonderful things that, we learn on the spiritual journey. I was on a mission to de-ice myself. Ouch. Because I was trying to chip away at everything that was on the surface, not realizing that what was holding me back, what was really grounding me in my story, was all the stuff that I had stuffed away, all the stories, all the people, the resentments that I had since I was itty bitty. All of my interpretation of what was right and wrong, my need to be separate and identified with who I am and great. It is the big story that was holding me, was weighing me down. It was the thing that I was trying to carry, a baggage of old stories of things that had happened to me. So then I began to think about, okay, if we are all positive and negative, then we get to experience the best and we get to experience the worst of everything. So we have the ability within us to experience both. So I'm going to invite you now, if you'd like to participate in an exercise. So if you don't mind standing up, I want to give you the opportunity to experience feeling the best and feeling the worst you've ever had. So take a second and look around where you are. Notice that you have a perspective, and each one of you stands on one point in this entire room, and you have a very unique individual perspective. Notice that, because the person here cannot see what the person back there is seeing. And the person back there has no clue what this one is seeing. Maybe a few little things, but not everything. Do you guys all agree with that? But notice that we're all standing on the same ground. So think of this ground as truth, and think of yourselves as individual perspectives of that truth. Each one with a unique way of looking at things, but all standing on truth. Can you imagine if everybody could stand with their perspective knowing that everybody else's perspective is also equally as true? Wouldn't that change the way things are? Wouldn't that allow us to expand our heart and accept and forgive the judgments that we've had of others and forgive the resentments that we have been holding on to if we knew that everybody is also true? Their perspective is true. Again, that was what the forgiveness allowed me to experience. My mom's perspective was true. So was mine. There was no right or wrong. It just was what it was. So Here's the exercise. Just look in front of you and look at whatever it is that you're looking at, and imagine in your mind, we want to activate the thoughts of that you are looking at the worst thing you've ever looked at. Find within whatever you're looking at the worst possible thing that you can see. And those of us who are really highly enlightened and advanced, I invite you to play along. You may not ever think negative thoughts about anybody, but today just play along. Just so that you can remember that feeling that when we see the worst of something, look at that ugly plant. My gosh, I can't believe she wore that sweater. Oh, what an ugly color. Look at that haircut. What a yucky place. Now feel in your body, honestly, if you're looking at something and looking for the worst of it, how does your body feel? How is your energy feeling? Is it feeling tight, tense, kind of constricted? Do you feel a little separated from everybody else? Do you feel like you're kind of a little alone, bobbing like an iceberg, in the middle of the ocean? Does anybody having that experience? Okay, thank you for playing full out. All right, so now I'm going to invite you to simply see the best. Same exercise, same things you were looking at. Look for the best in it. Look for the best. Wow, look at that smile. Look at their desire to be expanded, that they're here. Look for their determination. Look for that thing that connects you. My, what a big heart that person has. Feel into their energy. Feel into your energy. Now, feel into your body. So we've had these thoughts that we've created. We're interpreting what's going on. Doesn't your body feel lighter? When you have the thoughts that it is the best that it can possibly be, don't you feel lighter and a little more connected? So even though you haven't moved places, don't you feel a little closer to everybody else? With our minds, we can direct how we feel. It's like, how many times do we need to hear that to get it? I read one time that there's a law of 1,000 times, and I would like to modify that. There's a law of 1,000,000 times for me in some of the things that I had to do. Thank you for participating in that exercise. The reason I wanted you to have that experience is because that was just an idea that came to me one time. And when I realized that from everybody's individual perspective, we are all standing on truth. So if everybody's standing on truth, everybody's perspective is right. That began to melt the right and wrong game for me. That began to allow me to see that I can think that it's beautiful. I can think that that's not so pretty. But doesn't have to be a judgment against whoever's wearing it or what's going on. It's just a recognition for me. I have my preferences. If I'm positive, negative, I got stuff that I like, I got stuff that I don't like. So I began to notice how my words, again, if the energy flows in one direction, my thoughts are taking my life in one direction. Sometimes my lines are pretty straight, sometimes they're squiggly, sometimes I get all knotted up and kind of constricted. But my energy is still moving in one direction. So what I needed to do for me was to become really aware of when my energy was not flowing in the way that I wanted to, like water, fluid, supple. So I began to make a decision. For me, I am taking responsibility for my thinking, because if my thinking directs my feeling, I want to be like a waterfall. I want to be in total movement. I want to be going with the flow of life. I want to be able to hear the symphony of life. I want to see the opportunities. I want to see all of the exciting things that are out there. Not only that, I want to know everybody else's point of truth, because I have been able to expand because others have shared their truth with me. If Colin had not shared the truth of radical forgiveness, I would have missed out on that little piece, or maybe I would have had to dig through a lot more stuff to find it. But as Annette said, he writes so easy to read that it was just a no-brainer. I decided that as a waterfall, I am going to encounter some pretty jagged edges. I'm going to encounter people who are all tight and tense. I'm going to be around situations that are really frigid, but I can still move through them. I can still have the opportunity to move through stuff. And the way I do that is by not focusing on the negative about it, but by staying very clear that my words are directing how I'm feeling. So if I want to feel good, guess what kind of thoughts I have to think? Good feeling thoughts. Or if I don't monitor my thinking, I turn into an iceberg. I get frigid. We all tend to do that. We separate ourselves from others when we have to be right. So determination, inspiration, goals. One of the things that I began to realize is I started to be very aware that my thoughts create my reality, that what I was thinking created how I feel. I got introduced to the next presenter. Magically how that happens. I had someone tell me about energy. Now at this point in my journey, I knew a little bit about energy, but still then energy was like woo-woo. That was stuff that, we didn't do that. I grew up a good Catholic girl and we didn't talk about energy. Even everything is energy, and Einstein said everything is energy, but my grandmother and my dad did not believe in things like that. So I got introduced to Dr. Fernand Pullen. I began to read about his work. I began to understand more about energy. I went to one of his workshops one weekend it's a 2-day weekend. And I learned so much about who I am, my chakras. I didn't know there was such thing as chakras. I didn't even know I had them. So it's kind of exciting when I found out there was stuff in me that was colorful and cute. It was like, I've got this energetic jewelry all the time on. Very cool. Then I had a wonderful opportunity to meet one of his students. Her name was Jan Jolly. And Jan, some of you may know her, does amazing energy work. I went and met with Jan. And when this was my very first session with her, I'm laying on this table and I'm about to experience energy, right? Little did I know what was going to happen to me. In the span of a 50-minute session, I literally became energy. And my energy merged with the energy of all that is. And I had this moment where I literally felt myself as source. I felt myself so expanded, I was just love. From that moment on, that was back in the summer of 2007, my life was forever altered. Once I realized that in my body were all these centers and that I could tap into energy anytime that I wanted to, it's always with me, but I had to use my conscious awareness to feel that. I began to see, so with what I am thinking, as I've been doing forgiveness and releasing the stories of the past, I am feeling so much lighter, so much better. Things are going groovy. All I needed to do was pay attention to the thinking because my energy was directing how I was feeling. And I had to come across this thing again, my ego. Notice the t-shirt says, my ego is smaller than your ego. Well, on the spiritual journey, we tend to have, a spiritual ego. And that's one of the things I want to invite those of you who are here. Notice the spiritual ego that still thinks that my spiritual knowledge is right and yours is wrong. That still thinks that my way there is right and yours is wrong. And for all of you who know me, that I've had the opportunity to speak with, if I've ever talked to you in such a way that was demeaning or putting you down or making you feel, or of course I can't make you feel anything, but if you were using words to interpret what I was saying that caused you to feel that I wasn't acknowledging you, I want to apologize for that. However, in the apology, it's just so that whatever I did feels softer to you, but in the end, there's really no need for apology because whatever I did is what was supposed to happen in that moment. Because if we are all energy, positive and negative, we will do things that will be perceived as positive, we will do things that will be perceived as negative. And for me, some of my greatest teachers were the ones who pointed out my stuff that, of course, in the moment felt very uncomfortable and I just had to get away from them. But eventually, when I began to look at that need to be right about what I knew, magic began to happen. When I began to look at the world as, okay, I want to be right about what I don't know. I want to be right about everybody else's stuff. I want to understand what else is out there. And I realized ego doesn't go away when you're on this journey. At least that is my perception. Some people want to kill their ego or vanish their ego. From my perspective, ego is my amigo. If every time it rears its head in a very negative way, it's an opportunity for me to look at a story. So I got to go get online and do one of Colin Tippin's forums. More radical forgiveness. Go release that resentment. Allow my energy to begin to move to feel more alive. So anyways, I decided, okay, if there is, I have an ego. I want to be right about what I know. That's natural. But I decided I want to be right about being happy. I want to be right about everybody else being right. I want to be right about everything being magical and everything being rosy. I want to be right that I live on a magnificent playground that was created for me billions of years ago by this energy of love that said, here is a place for you to go and play. And when I realized that I am an expression of that energy on this playground playing, that's when life really got fun and easy. In case you were wondering, where on the journey got fun and easy? It was after I felt that energy and realized that, okay, this is my ego. So I call that having my awakening, having, being enlightened. Whatever that means for you, it doesn't matter. Everybody has their own idea of what enlightenment is. I'll share mine. To me, being enlightened is knowing the truth. Knowing the truth that I am love. That within me is the opportunity to pick to be loving or not. That within me is the positive and the negative, and I can choose how to direct my energy, is to me being enlightened. Now, am I enlightened all the time? No. Because I still have my human side, and I still, there are judgments that show up. The difference is I don't turn into an iceberg now. It's just like an ice cube in a can of soda. So it serves a purpose. It all goes back down to the energy. Remember, everything is energy. It all started from energy. And we have the ability to experience energy through the words that we choose, through the thoughts that we have. So this energy that is undifferentiated, that is like this air right here, with our words, turn into something. We have the ability to use our words to guide our energy. And through the piece of forgiveness, we begin to see where we are using our words to hold others responsible or ourselves. Self-forgiveness is actually a big piece too. So in putting all the pieces of these puzzle together, I hope that you leave here with knowing what you already know, but looking at it from a slightly different perspective. And remember, anytime you feel bad, you created that. Anytime you feel good, you created that too. Isn't it empowering? Isn't it cool to know that we actually direct our life through the thoughts that we're thinking? It's absolutely amazing. And if you don't believe that that's okay, you're right. Good for you. Because wherever you stand on the ground of truth. So I acknowledge you wherever you are. And thank you for allowing me to be wherever I am on my journey. And now that we have put the pieces of the puzzle together, I have shared with you the whole truth. Can you tell I had fun doing this?